Yeah, okay. What's up, girlfriend? I made a video last week saying why I would take, and my God, my face is sunburned, you can see it. I made a video like why I was going to bring a Nikon D4, I got a pair of those, to an outdoor event where there's really, of course I couldn't predict the weather, but I assumed it would be like really bright and sunny, which of course it was. Not only that, it was just hotter than Satan's crotch outside. And these are shots from the Nikon D4. Oh my God, the color saturation. Oh my God. People say, why wouldn't you bring the Nikon D850? Why, that's a 47. I had a lot of people ask me that question. They say, oh, why would you bring a 16 megapixel Nikon D4 as opposed to your 47 megapixel Nikon D850? You know, that's also a more advanced sensor. It's backside illuminated. Yeah, well, there's this neat little thing. This is the mayor of Lexington. I met him at an event. I had a couple of corporate people that wanted me to take some shots for them, which is a tax write-off, to prove that they're at the event, and they did this and that. And I spent about 3 hours doing that, just melting my ass off. There's people passing out at the event. But the dynamic range is incredible, even in the shadows. This is straight out of camera. I got links. I'll put a couple links below to these shots. Oh, look at the color saturation. So there's something magical. People say, why would you bring the Nikon D4? That's slow autofocus and, well, certainly slower autofocus than the Nikon D850. It's because there is this inescapable and inexplicable, it's actually completely explainable, it's not inexplicable. It's seemingly inexplicable. Why would you bring an old inferior camera like that to, when you got better cameras? Define better. When it is really contrasty, and I did use flash photography for the two corporate sponsors that were there because they were underneath the tent and there was also some high contrast. The dynamic range was off the scale. I used fill flash for those shots. For these, they didn't require it, and I didn't want to use it. I just wanted to be an aperture priority and concentrate on enjoying myself after I was done working. Here's another shot. The dynamic range is incredible. You have huge eyeballs on the sensor. Say, I don't care it's a 16 megapixel. People say, why would you bring that? It's like, well, I always think a photo shoot out ahead of time what lens I need to bring so I don't have to crop. There are times where you have to crop the piss out of stuff like bird photography, but there's no money in bird photography. When I do bird photography, which is just for pure pleasure and relaxation, I know I'm going to have to crop the piss out of the shot. In which case, I bring the Nikon D500 or the Nikon D850, preferably the D500 because A, the files are not absolutely titanic, and B, there's the exact same amount of data per millimeter of sensor on the D500 as there is on the Nikon D850, and there's always plenty of light doing bird photography, and also you got a basically inexhaustible buffer on the D500, which you don't have on the Nikon D850. Yeah, these are the Nikon D4. This is the reason I bring the Nikon D4. Incredible saturation, straight out of camera, which who cares about straight out of camera when everybody edits stuff in Lightroom and Photoshop, but you want to edit as little as possible. With that dynamic range, incredible things can happen where you don't actually have to worry about blowing your highlights. That's why smaller eyeballs are a problem. This is the reason why. You say, why would you bring a Nikon D4 when you have those better cameras? Well, here's the reason why. Saturation, dynamic range. So yeah, but it's only 16 megapixels. So? These professionals happy as a pig in a pile of crap. The best professional photographers in the world, happier than a pig and poo, back in 2008 with the 12 megapixel Nikon D3. Why? Yes, so they're perfectly happy with the 12 megapixel Nikon D3 or D3S, and 16 is what? Do you get my point? Oh, you need 1 billion megapixels and super fast autofocus. No, here's what you do. You need skills. You need to be able to know what's going to go down. You always have to pre-think an event. You're going to say, well, this is what's going to happen. This is the distance, the operating distances I'm going to have. Therefore, I'm going to bring this lens, or that lens, yada yada. I know there's going to be really high contrast dynamic range. I'm going to need fill flash. I'm going to want my right radio trigger. That's what people don't do in preparing for an event. They're like, oh, okay, I got an event tomorrow, and they put all their gear together. They don't think it out. Preparation, I say chance favors the prepared mind, and of course that is the case. All photography is chance. I mean, you have to have the skills, you have to be on the spot when the shot happens, but you need to pre-think in it as if you're going to be there tomorrow or next week when you actually do the shoot, as far as what sort of image composition, dynamic range, and working distance that you have. Therefore, you pre-plan the type of lenses and the certain focal lengths you bring, and the amount of speed lights or lack thereof. You always bring a speed light, actually, more than one usually. People say, why would you bring a Nikon D4? That's a lovely shot. Everybody seemed to like this shot on Instagram. I think it's a lovely shot. That's the reason why I brought the Nikon D4. That being said, however, the Nikon D4 is still obnoxiously expensive. Good Nikon D4 with less than 100,000 clicks averages about $2,200. You can get a really good Nikon D800E for far less than that. But in this sort of scenario, having both, well, I don't have the Nikon D800E anymore, but if I still had the Nikon D810, I would still be bringing the Nikon D4. Because I know the working distances I'm going to be at. I'm going to take shots with lenses and focal lengths where I know I'm not going to have to really crop, hardly at all. This is a crop shot. It's only 16 megapixels. This is what basically, if I did the full thing, this would be about bigger than a 20 by 30. Well, roughly a 20 by 30. This is, they print out roadside billboard signs with 12 megapixel and 24 megapixel cameras. What's the matter? You can't work out a 20 by 30 print from a 16 megapixel Nikon D4? Yeah. Look at that color saturation. Damn. Yeah. So this is the response video to the flack I got last week and saying I was going to bring a Nikon D4 to an event. Well, why are you going to do that? That seems like a bad choice. No, it's a good choice. Actually, if the autofocus were a little bit faster, I would have brought the Fujifilm GFX. But it's not. I don't need speed in shooting a corporate group, a bunch of people, like, you know, putting your arms on each other. So you don't have autofocus issues with stuff like that. For that would have been fine. But it was hot as piss yesterday. I thought I was going to die of heat stroke. I must have sweated like 100 gallons. Ew, so did everybody else. Even the skinny people were sweating their butt off. Man, it was hot. Anyway, thanks for watching. Nikon!